The day they kidnapped me, worst day of my life. I never thought something like this could happen to me. Not in a million years. I was just an ordinary 22-year-old, a college student from a quiet neighborhood in England. I had a decent life. My dad worked a regular 9-to-5 office job, and my mum was a nurse, always caring for others. I had a younger brother and an older sister. We were a happy, decent family. We lived in a nice part of town where everyone knew everyone, where the air always smelled clean and the streets were safe. Everything was fine. I couldn't complain. That night was like any other. I had just finished classes and was riding my bike home, the cool air rushing against my face. The streets were quiet, lit only by the flickering glow of street lamps. I was lost in thought, thinking about the essays I needed to write, the exams I had to prepare for. The hum of my bike tires on the road was the only sound around me. I was headed home toward the warmth of my family, my bed, the comfort of the ordinary. Then, out of nowhere, a van screeched to a halt beside me. I barely had time to react before 4 men, masked, hooded, rushed at me, hands grabbing my arms, dragging me off the bike. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice thick with confusion and panic. "What the hell is going on?" "Shut up!" one of them barked, his voice low and gruff. Before I could say anything more, a hand covered my mouth, and I was shoved into the back of the van. The door slammed shut, and the van roared to life, lurching forward. I was blindfolded almost immediately. The cloth was harsh against my skin, cutting off any sense of sight. I couldn't see a thing. My chest tightened. My heart hammered in my chest, each beat louder than the last. "Don't make a sound," one of the men warned. His voice was muffled by the mask, but still distinct. "No one can hear you. No one's coming." The van was moving fast, too fast. I could hear the engine growling beneath me, the tires screeching as we turned sharply. Every twist and bump made my stomach lurch. The air inside the van was thick, like the inside of a furnace, and I could taste the metal and oil in the back of my throat. "Where are we going?" I tried to ask, but my voice shook. "Shut up," came the response. "You'll know soon enough." The ride felt endless. I lost track of time. Was it minutes? Hours? Every second dragged by, the fear sinking deeper into my bones. The smell of sweat, leather, and stale air filled the space around me. I could hear the men muttering to each other in low tones, but nothing made sense. My mind raced in 1,000 directions. I couldn't stop thinking of my family. What would they do? What did they think? Could they find me? I felt like I was suffocating, like I was being swallowed by the darkness. After what felt like forever, the van slowed to a stop. The engine cut off with a finality that made my heart skip a beat. I was jerked out of the van, my legs unsteady beneath me. The cold night air hit me hard, sending a shiver down my spine. They dragged me across gravel, rough, biting stones scraping against my skin, before pushing me into what felt like a building. It smelled of old dust and dampness. They shoved me onto a cold, hard floor. The room was small and the silence was suffocating. The only sound was the occasional rustle of one of the men moving in the distance. It felt like the walls were closing in on me. I couldn't see anything, couldn't move, couldn't escape. My arms were cuffed to a metal pipe that ran along the wall, and I could feel the sharp metal biting into my wrists. Every breath I took seemed to echo in the vast emptiness of the room. Hours passed, or maybe it was only minutes, but time became irrelevant. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, thirst dried my throat, and my mind began to unravel. The silence was deafening, and my own thoughts were my only company. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I knew it wouldn't matter. They had made that clear. Then the door creaked open. "Up," a voice snapped. It was one of the men, his tone rough and impatient. I was hauled to my feet, my legs weak, my body trembling. They forced me back into the van, and once again I was plunged into darkness. The road stretched out ahead of us, bumpy, uneven, the van jolting with every bump. I could hear one of the men talking, but the words were too faint, too muffled for me to make sense of. "Where are we going?" I asked again. I was very hungry, weak. My voice barely came out of my mouth. My throat burned, my words barely more than a rasp. The same voice, cold and dismissive. "You'll find out soon enough." The drive seemed endless. I was losing track of time again. The same sounds, the engine's growl, the tires' hum, blended into a disorienting symphony. I tried to focus on anything, but everything felt too far away, too blurry. Suddenly, there was a screeching sound, a terrible, gut-wrenching noise that made my stomach flip. The van swerved violently. I was thrown to the side, my head slamming against the door. Pain shot through me. Subscribe for part 2.